there. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. Well, let me tell you, the weather is not that great right now. I am definitely hoping that the connection here in the video portion is going to maintain stable all the way through. But I will tell you this, we are going through it a bit with the weather right now. Also, wanted to share my well wishes, prayers, and thoughts for everyone who may be in the path of Hurricane Elena. Or Helene, I believe is the name now. I believe it's somewhere out in Mexico, but we are definitely seeing some weather phenomena coming from that storm. And maybe from other things going around at this point too. So for sure, for any of you who may be in the positioning, I wish you safe evacuation if that's necessary. Definitely make sure you check on your peoples and anyone that you know that are in those areas that may look to be upon that track. So definitely my thoughts with you all who are affected, and for any of you who may have friends and family and so forth that may be affected as well. So now, as you can see, we are going to be talking about JLo-Ben, which has been a favored topic, I think, for a lot of different reasons. Again, JLo definitely does have her fans, and she definitely does have her critics. And it has not, I think one thing we can all agree upon is that, this has not been a great year for her. 2024 has not been a great year. As we know, Cat Williams let us know that 2024 was going to be a huge year of reveals, and the reveals continue to keep coming. Now, you know that I have also, if you've been around here, for the platform, that I have actually done a few videos regarding JLo-Ben and just other things that she had maybe been going through at the time. So if you haven't had an opportunity to take a watch of those videos, I hope that you will take some time to do that before or after, I should say, this video here. Now, again, if I didn't already say it, but I think I did, welcome back for those who are already part of the family, and welcome to you if you are new here. I hope that you enjoy the show, for all of you. So that being said, the reason why I wanted to kind of get into this story is, one, am I hugely into all of the ins and outs of the situation with their divorce here, there, and everywhere? Maybe not so much really that invested, but I do find it to be quite interesting, because I just still am perplexed of the idea of how a couple can be together, separate, come back together 17 years later, and literally be in cahoots in such a short fashion. And there are many reasons for this, right? Sometimes people say, look, you can't always go back to old relationships. And that's very true. Sometimes, people are who and what they are and what they show you. But then there's also the side where there are individuals who may be, kind of right person, wrong time. And we've seen that quite often as well, too. So that kind of keeps that argument going back and forth of whether or not you should go back. Now, there are rules to it, but those rules only apply for the people that are actually making those rules, correct? Not everybody's going to feel the same about whether or not you should take chances at love, or if you should stay clear away from things that do not seem to serve you well. Now, of course, we all know JLo is a very accomplished woman for whatever reason, and however he got to that point is another conversation. But she is, in fact, very well known, and we all know this. So, of course, we look at an individual like that who seems to have everything, and you wonder why we always see everything else working out, but just being so unlucky in love. Now, there is a bit of a video from one of her last outings, I believe. It's the one with the silver and black dress with the bows on the side. And you may have seen this video kind of circulating around social media, where it appeared, or it was being shared, that they thought that she was being asked maybe about her current situation, and what seemed to be stated as, she doesn't pick well, doesn't pick right, or something to that extent. So not 100% sure if that was the conversation exactly, because we were not there. I'm sure some lip readers would be able to decipher whether or not it is or isn't. But it just really, I thought, if that was what she was referencing, how sad that is, and how relatable it is to so many people. Now, whether you feel that JLo is in a storm because it's of her own making, her own doing, and there's karmic control happening at this point, that may be the case. But nevertheless, it's still interesting to see how things can be built up to be such a way and then turn around and be such a nothing. So when I came across this sharing, it was interesting to see an area in which they wanted to talk more about the breakup and the reasons behind the breakup. So there is already some conversation that's already been out there for what speculation is why it happened, because I believe that it ended up on irreconcilable differences. But of course, we all know that irreconcilable differences is just a fancy word of saying maybe a whole lot of stuff that you may not want anyone to know about, or it could just simply be we just can't get along, and that's just what it is, and we want out of this. I definitely did think about why not maybe therapy, why not maybe marriage counseling, but I don't know, right? I don't know what their situation was in the personal, and I don't know if maybe those things they felt weren't going to help happen or work out. So, we're left with, the speculation there is of everything. But let's go ahead and nevertheless get into this sharing. I would love to know your thoughts down below as I go through it and share how I feel about what is being presented here as well. I'm definitely keeping those respectful down below. Let's have a conversation about it, because I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned in normal place with us regular folks. When you see that, sometimes celebrity situations are social experiments. Sometimes they're a way to show an example of what things you may or may not want to get into, or may look as red flags if you're not seeing it within your own situation. So it's always a way of being able to give a reflective piece of how human nature can work, whether it's tethered to something or it's authentically going that direction. So let's go ahead and get into this sharing. Now, let's see, who are we getting this from? This is from thecut.com. And of course, it shares, why did JLo and Ben Affleck break up? Now, what went wrong with Bennifer 2.0, would ask? Was it always destined to end like this? After 2 years of marriage and months of gossip, will these two ever get back together? Who the heck is going to buy their marital home for $68 million? Now, these are the questions that have been plaguing me for the past few weeks. Now, this would be the author of this sharing. I don't really have answers to most of them, but the tabloids have been working overtime to provide some context for the first one. The anonymous sources are coming out of the woodwork, and they sure have lots to say. They say that the split has been long coming, but also that Bennifer might be doing a bit of a PDA in the Polo Lounge while their kids sit at different table. Let's get into all of it from the beginning to the end. Now, the anonymous sources were Team JLo. Now, they say that Page Six reported that Bennifer's marital woes went all the way back to their honeymoon, on which the couple were hounded by photographers in Lake Como, Italy. He was unhappy with paparazzi following them, a source explained. She is an international superstar, and he acted like it came as a surprise that they could be followed or would be followed around. They would barely speak to each other during what was supposed to be the happiest time of their life, the source continued. He sold her on him being a changed man, and that lasted a very short time. The New York Post also went back in time, returning to the greatest love story ever told, the companion documentary to Lopez's This Is Me Now film. In the doc, Lopez reflected on Affleck's discomfort with some of her artistic choices. I don't think he's very comfortable with me doing all of this, she said, but he loves me. He knows I'm an artist, and he's going to support me in every way he can, because he knows he can't stop me from making the music I made and writing the words that I wrote. He wants to do that for me, but that doesn't mean he's comfortable being the muse. Elsewhere in the documentary, Affleck is captured realizing that Lopez is sharing his private love letters to her with a team of musicians. I did really find the beauty and the poetry and the irony, in fact, that it's the greatest love story never told, he said to camera. If you're making a record about it, that seems kind of like telling it, and I would have to agree. On August 20th, TMZ had reported that Lopez had filed for divorce without a lawyer. The New York Post had later reposted that Lopez cited irreconcilable differences as the reason of the split. As part of its reporting, TMZ noted that the couple had been working toward a settlement for months, and that the discussions had grown acrimonious. According to the outlet, the couple have still not reached an agreement. Now, a source had told People that Lopez was done waiting when she decided to file on the second anniversary of their Georgia wedding ceremony. She tried really hard to make things work and is heartbroken, the source said. Another source had told the tabloid that Lopez is ready to move on from the relationship. She's very disappointed and sad, but Ben hasn't given her any signs that he wants to continue their marriage. TMZ added to the moving on angle when they reported that Lopez had requested to drop Affleck's last name, as she was legally Jennifer Affleck, and have her maiden name restored. Now, it's quite interesting for a couple of points made in the sharing thus far, and really looking at the point that glaringly comes out at me as the positioning of I'm going to be a better person, right? It's being alleged and shared that then it was basically saying, look, I'm not the person that I used to be. I am the person maybe that you should be with now, right? I am the person. I am the right one. And the thing is, this is sometimes quite interesting when if is there been any work done, if necessary, to come to that agreement? Or is it that you just came to that enlightenment of yourself, if all of that is true? At the end of the day, sometimes you can feel like you're being sold a bill of goods. So you have to remember that when you are walking into that situation, and this is, of course, my opinion, if you are walking into a situation where you're looking to court back with the ex, that you're looking at all aspects for what it is and getting out beyond that rose-colored glasses. Because at the end of the day, once you are given a second chance to walk down a certain space, you're really hoping that you're doing that with a better eyes, right? You're doing it from a place of actual awareness fully that you may not have had before. So you want to be more critical. Now, that does not mean that that situation cannot work out in the short term, but the rush to get into the relationship, put it everywhere, and then turn around and get married or engaged and then married in very quick, short order, was it really the best way to go about it? Well, that's a question, obviously, that they would have to have for themselves. Was this all that it was cracked up to be? And if you were able to get from lickety split, getting together and ending it all together at the same time within 2 years, maybe it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. And, often individuals sometimes walk into a situation where they're given their representative versus who they are. And that representative will start to have the face of a mask that will fall at some point because it cannot be continued on. Now, some may say that depends on the degree of the narcissism that might be attached to an individual, if that is something that is attached to that individual. There's also a lot of other types of, we'll say, behavioral issues that one can also obtain for acting in a manner in which is not being less than, let's say, being less than honest in their situation of what they want. Is it in fact that if you're saying I'm the changed person, if I am, is it that I really am changed, or am I running from something else? Am I looking at you as a savior to whatever I'm going through at this moment? And then another point I'm looking at is the fact that she's a celebrity. Now, JLo was a big celebrity back at the time that Ben and her were dating and engaged at that point, but she astronomically became a much bigger superstar, I believe, from that point till now. So I think at that point also he was extremely relevant, if I can recall. And so therefore it may have made him feel like he was a leading force in that, right? So therefore you might have some ability to control how much onus that you have put on you when it comes to paparazzi and whatever else. I honestly feel by some of the sharings that I have read about them too, that he was a little bit, I guess, surprised about how big she became. I'm not really sure, because maybe he hasn't really paid much attention to her arc from the time that they had broken up until now. But I also feel like even if you have seen it and well, yes, she's still very relevant at the point in time that we reconcile, it's a whole nother thing when you're in that spotlight. So I found those 2 points to be very, very interesting as the sharing went on. So let's go ahead and continue. Now, Affleck had the occasional defender, though. So in the rare Lopez critical comment, a source told the Daily Mail that the singer's friends want her to do some self-reflection. After 4 failed marriages, her friends feel that she should take a look inside and focus on herself instead of what others want her to be, and finally figure out who she is and what she wants from her future, they said. The same source explained that Affleck apparently let Lopez file on their anniversary because he knew it would make her feel better. Jennifer said she was tired of being humiliated by Ben, and she waited until the 2-year anniversary because she wanted to make it sting, they told the British tabloid. But it did not sting him. It's been done for a long time, and deep down, she knows this. He let her have this so that she wouldn't look like the villain. And I'll be honest with you, I think in that retrospect, she's going to be the villain anyways, if that's what someone wants to see her as. And I've seen a lot of commentary and I've seen a lot of sharings that she really is the villain incarnate, in their opinions, obviously, about this situation. And then you see the ones that say, no, Ben's really not the great one. And then you see the ones that find more balance in between the two situations and say, you know what, I think they both participated in this situation the demise of it, as well as the going back into it. So, where the responsibility lies, in my opinion, I would say it lies in both. I mean, you do have an idea of what you're working with. And I don't know if he's much different from what he was then, as far as speaking from the perspective of JLo. But I don't know if it was so much different that you wouldn't see some of the same things unless there was some real critical taking care of those things. So let's continue. Now, but anti-Affleck sentiment continued to build. So meanwhile, sources had close to Lopez have been extremely busy chatting up reporters from Page Six and People. First, a source told Page Six that Affleck has a darkness to him that no other person can fix. Now, Lopez truly believed this was the greatest love story she'd ever known, and she was finally getting her chance at the fairy tale, the source explained. She just really didn't stop to consider who the actual man was in the fairy tale. They continued saying that Lopez would have done anything to make this work, and that she truly believed love would conquer all. Now, later that same day, the tabloid had reported that Affleck had been hanging out with Kit Kennedy, the daughter of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The two were reportedly spotted at a polo lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel and other hot spots. A representative for Affleck denied this rumor, telling people there is no truth to any of it, and says, I don't know if they even really know each other. Now, I too saw a lot of, pictures and stuff circulating around that may have alluded to that he was moving on rather quickly from the situation. But if you are to believe this reports of the fact that they were having issues since their honeymoon, him and JLo, that is, then it's maybe stands to reason that he probably had already started moving on, if that was the case, many, many months ago. Now, meanwhile, People had an exclusive source telling them that despite the great deal of love in the relationship, Affleck's erratic mood swings contributed to their downfall. They were trying to work through it, but when the mood swings and the big highs and big lows informed a toxicity that was pervasive, and no one can help you. You have to help yourself, the source said. The world was rooting for them, but who he said he was and who he turned out to be were two different people. And doesn't that happen often in many situations? As if that weren't enough, a source also told People that while Lopez is still close to Jennifer Garner and all 5 kids, Affleck has not been in touch with Lopez's children in a long time. Now, that was also an interesting aspect because I do recall quite a bit of sharings where JLo was being chastised and criticized for not staying in contact with A-Rod's daughters, who she had apparently grown close with during their courtship together. And I believe they were together for at least 4 years or so. So that was very much a sticking point. Now, some may say, well, Jennifer actually did not marry A-Rod. She married Ben Affleck. So in retrospect, she is still considered, if the divorce hasn't been final, stepmother to Ben Affleck's children. And so therefore the relationship may be different. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think that if you are in a situation, and I understand we start meshing in family members, that can be a bit challenging. But if it's a toxic situation or a situation in which it needs to be over, maybe it is good to have a clean slate between the two. And then you kind of move forward, not in anti-love or anything, but just in peace, really, at the point, because it allows A-Rod and his family to fully move on and move forward through their sharings and whoever they choose to get into relationships with. And then there's no conflict or no tug of war, or no, hey, maybe you guys should get back together. I wish you'd get back together. All of these kind of emotions running back and forth between, because at the end of the day, you still have to find a way to protect the children. So how and which way that split took place, we will never really know. But I do know some people are really critical of JLo's direction in which she chose not to continue to move forward with the relationship with the children of A-Rod, at least what we may know of. Now, JLo had, clearly the narrative that's been decided upon JLo's camp is that she thought she was marrying one guy and she wound up being married to a different, more sinister guy. Affleck's camp remains silent despite the full court press they're currently facing. Now, JLo posted through it, as we may have seen. Over Labor Day weekend, we had saw that Lopez had exercised her right as a newly single woman and shared a pointed Instagram photo dump. Try and tell me you haven't watched your friend do this after she went through a massive breakup. It's a perfect mix of photos where she looks hot, photos of her family to show that she has fulfillment and love outside of men. Several cute animal photos, a booty pic apparently, and a couple Pinteresty inspirational quotes. seems to be kind of the recipe for what happens after the breakup, and you don't want anyone to really see the true insides of what's going on. But I will say this, unless you're wearing glasses all the time, a lot of times you can feel and see what's going on if you're intuitive enough or empathetic enough, or you can see it in the eyes. The eyes never lie. That's just my opinion. Some of you might disagree with that. I don't know. Maybe some of you would agree with that. But that's a question, really, honestly. Do you think that you can kind of tell no matter what's being said to you, unless you're a narcissist? So let's just keep those kind of people out where there's no way that you would be able to wrap your brain over what they could do to manipulate you. But for the average individual, can you not tell it in the eyes? I know personally, I feel like I can. So let me know down below if you agree with that. So it says, I like the one that has a photo of a woman wearing a t-shirt that reads, she's in bloom and unbothered, out of reach and at peace. And that's a very catchy little saying, isn't it? And of course, she topped it off with a cheeky, nonchalant caption. And so this is obviously part of what, she would need to do to help her to be able to move on, right? To be able to move forward, to be able to not allow the stinging of the situation, the humiliation of the situation get to her as much as it could. And I'm sure she probably feels she doesn't have the time for the breakdown that she wished she could have. At the end of the day, when your life is put in front of the cameras or put out in the spotlight for everybody to see, it makes it a little bit difficult for you to kind of crawl into a space like most people have the opportunity to do and really work on you and be able to feel the emotions you need to feel. I mean, it's every time you walk out the door, you may have somebody snapping a picture of you. Now, some I hear say that she actually sets that up. I don't know if that's true or not, but nevertheless, even the fact if it is or isn't, it still has to be quite a bit to be under that bulb of betrayal. So now a reconciliation or just a fun lunch with their kids. Now I actually did a video on this as well because it was a hot thing. I think it popped last weekend or the weekend before. I don't know. There's been so much stuff going on over the last months, really, but it's been very heightened in the last couple of weeks. Even just to yesterday, I believe there was a press conference, and I think you know what I'm referring to. So, but not to get too into that situation. There's just been a lot going on. And that being said, this was one of the things that kind of popped up, and a lot of people were kind of wondering what's this, what's that, because it was appearing that we were getting to a point of finally a decision was made, a divorce filing was made, and that these two were going to be moving on. But a reconciliation, So as it shares here, a couple weeks later, something had shifted, or did it? Affleck and Lopez are reportedly canoodling at the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills. Now, I don't know if there's any pics of that anywhere, but there's a lot of talk about that took place. Apparently this happened in Beverly Hills while out to brunch with their kids. There were photos of them together for the first time in forever, and Affleck looked mad in only one, maybe two of them, because he gets criticized a lot about that. According to a report from Page 6, Affleck and Lopez were holding hands and kissing while inside the restaurant. The kids were with them, but at a separate table, and I haven't seen any pictures of that myself personally. If you have, feel free to drop it down below. It really seems the most that I saw really was the outside and how that seemed to take place with them getting inside the restaurant or into the Beverly Hills Hotel part of the restaurant. And it just, Ben just seemed like Ben to me, honestly. It's interesting. I don't recall him being so I don't want to say antagonistic, but so bothered by the cameras and paparazzi and the glare. Maybe that was a thing. I just never really noticed that. But I seem to see it a lot now, right? We see what appears to be or what feels like a meltdown. Now, maybe it could be that, or maybe he could just be extremely animated in his expression. Whatever it is, I'm not really sure, because I'll see him in something like that, and then I'll see him in a sit-down interview with someone, and he seems very calm and just kind of even toned and even keeled. So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls up, especially with every other thing that's going on right now. So much realizations and revelations coming too. So just kind of put a pin in that for a minute. Now, the more romantic among us rejoiced that those cozy kids had gotten back to, or those crazy kids, probably were getting cozy, right? Those crazy kids had gotten back together. Quickly, other outlets pumped the brakes on our celebration. Yes, because as soon as that started coming out, then there was a say, no, there's no reconciliation, nothing here, nothing to see here. Now, people had a source that said that the fun lunch was planned so the kids could hang out. The source said that the couple was still going ahead with the divorce, but that Lopez is trying to be friendly with Ben. A source told TMZ that while there was some PDA at brunch, the divorce was still on And any warmth was more to show the kids that they were getting along. These two really know how to keep us on our toes. Or could it have been a moment of lapse in judgment, and as far as getting close to one another? Sometimes when you're going through a breakup, and that's a very normal thing to deal with or encounter with, especially if as she has shared that he was a love of her life, right? That sometimes you could slip into bad and old habits. And at this point, we don't know if that's going to be the case for them. I really do hope that they find some kind of peace amongst themselves. But I'll be honest with you, it looks like Ben is doing just fine. It really does. I don't see him as broken up as I maybe would have expected him to be. But considering some of the things that I've heard around the Ben, maybe it was never going to be that way anyways. So I, again, would love to know your thoughts below. So definitely, please go ahead and make sure you leave them down respectfully in the comment section. Let's have a conversation about it. Do you think that these are the reasons that we're sharing as a potential of why they were not able to go the long distance, which really kind of amounts to whether or not they should have been together in the first place, if the red flags really were taken into consideration? And was this a situation basically that, I felt this was the love of my life and we weren't given a second chance earlier, so now I want to go ahead and just leap of faith into that second chance, where sometimes some relationships are maybe more soulmate and some are more karmic. Maybe they can be one and the same, I guess, too. But I would love to know your thoughts, so please feel free to share those down below. And of course, I would love for you to make sure that you stick around. If you're new here, definitely become a family member here with us, and go ahead and subscribe, because I would so love to have you. And of course, I appreciate all of you for your viewing and listening support. I definitely would like to know your thoughts down below, so make sure you leave them respectfully down there for me. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you have the notification bells on all, because I do have many, many, many more videos to be dropping. I'm also going to try to see if I can drop a couple of them today before the weather takes completely over the internet as it is. So that being said, thank you so much again for spending some time with me. And until next time, you take care and be blessed. Bye.